The massive crystal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hum that echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Kethvar walked slowly across the polished floor, his forearms carrying data tablets that contained information that would change everything the Council thought they knew about the galaxy. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat from the Zephyrian Empire had seen many first contact reports during his long career, but this one felt different somehow. Chairman Velthara sat at the center of the circular chamber, her crystalline body reflecting the soft lights from hundreds of viewing screens that surrounded the room. She was ancient, even by galactic standards, having served the Council for over 2,000 years. Her species, the Nexari, lived for millennia and were known for their patience and wisdom. Today, however, she sensed that both qualities would be tested. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species waited quietly. The Aquatic Confederation's ambassador Zixtel floated in his specialized water tank, his tentacles moving slowly as he reviewed documents on waterproof displays. The Silicon Collective's representative, Mektar, stood motionless like a statue made of living metal. Dr. Rendall from the Empathic Union sat with her eyes closed, feeling the emotions of everyone in the room through her natural telepathic abilities. Kethvar reached the center of the chamber and activated his personal hologram projector. A three-dimensional image of a small blue and green planet appeared above his head, rotating slowly in the artificial light. The planet looked ordinary enough, with vast oceans and several large continents covered in various shades of green and brown. "Honored Council members," Kethvar began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "I present to you the third planet of a yellow star system located in Sector 779 of the Outer Rim. The inhabitants call their world Earth, and they call themselves humans." Chairman Velthara leaned forward slightly, her crystal features reflecting curiosity. "What is their current technological level, Ambassador?" "Basic fusion power, primitive artificial intelligence, and they have achieved faster-than-light travel within the last 50 of their years," Kethvar replied, reading from his data tablet. "Their population is approximately 8 billion individuals, and they have established small colonies on several nearby worlds." The information seemed routine to most council members. New species achieved space travel regularly, and the council had developed efficient procedures for integrating them into galactic civilization over thousands of years. The process was well established. Observation, assessment, gradual introduction to galactic society, and eventual membership at the appropriate level. Mektar's metallic voice resonated through the chamber. "Have they made contact with any other species?" "Negative," Kethvar answered. "They appear to be unaware of galactic civilization. However, one of their exploration vessels has requested permission to dock with our monitoring station in their sector. They wish to establish what they call diplomatic relations." Dr. Rendall opened her large dark eyes and spoke softly. "What emotional readings do we have from their transmissions?" "Curiosity, excitement, and determination," the ambassador replied. "No signs of aggressive intent or territorial expansion desires. They seem genuinely interested in peaceful contact." "Chairman," Velthara considered this information carefully. The standard protocol was clear. Invite the new species to send a small delegation to the council station, conduct basic compatibility tests, explain galactic law and society, and assign them a mentor species to guide their integration. Most new civilizations required several generations to adapt to galactic standards. "Very well," she announced. "We shall extend the standard first contact invitation." assign the Aquatic Confederation as their mentor species, given their experience with emotional species. Ambassador Zixtel, please prepare the usual orientation materials. The aquatic being's tentacles moved in what his species considered a nod of agreement. I shall prepare quarters suitable for oxygen-breathing bipeds and arrange for standard cultural exchange protocols. 3 weeks later, the human vessel arrived at Council Station Harmony, a massive structure that served as a neutral meeting place for diplomatic missions. The station was enormous, capable of housing representatives from hundreds of different species in environments suitable for their various biological needs. Its central core contained the grand meeting halls, while the outer rings provided specialized living areas for different atmospheric and gravitational requirements. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Horizon, looking through the main viewport at the approaching station. He was a tall man in his 40s, with short brown hair and calm blue eyes that missed very little. Behind him, his small crew prepared for what would be humanity's first formal contact with alien civilization. Dr. Lisa Wang checked her scientific equipment one final time. She was a brilliant xenobiologist who had spent years studying the possibility of alien life. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her dark eyes sparkled with excitement at the prospect of meeting actual alien beings. She carried several data tablets containing information about human biology, medicine, and scientific achievements. Captain Roy Burke reviewed security protocols, though he hoped they would not be needed. He was a veteran of Earth's recent resource, conflicts. A stocky man with graying hair and sharp green eyes that constantly assessed potential threats. His experience in Earth's military had taught him to be prepared for anything, even during peaceful missions. Katie Sullivan sat at the communications console, monitoring the dozens of radio frequencies that surrounded the massive station. She was young, barely 30, with red hair and bright brown eyes that reflected her enthusiasm for languages and communication. She had learned 17 Earth languages and was eager to tackle the challenge of alien communication systems. The Horizon itself was a product of human engineering philosophy, functional, adaptable, and built to handle unexpected situations. Unlike the elegant, specialized vessels of other galactic species, the human ship looked somewhat crude, but contained systems that could be quickly modified or repaired under almost any conditions. Ambassador Zixtel waited in the station's primary docking bay, floating in a mobile water tank that allowed him to move freely through the air-filled corridors. His species had welcomed over a dozen new civilizations into galactic society, and he expected this first contact to proceed like all the others. The humans would be amazed by galactic technology, overwhelmed by the diversity of species, and eager to learn their place in the established order. As the Horizon docked with the station, automated systems began equalizing atmosphere and gravity between the two vessels. Standard translation devices were activated, allowing for basic communication between species that had evolved on completely different worlds. Commander Morrison led his team through the airlock and into the station's receiving area. The artificial. Gravity felt slightly different from Earth normal, and the air carried unfamiliar scents that reminded them they were truly in an alien environment. The first thing that struck them was the sheer size of the space. The docking bay could have held a dozen ships the size of the Horizon. Ambassador Zixtel approached them, his water tank gliding smoothly across the floor. When he spoke, the translation device converted his aquatic language into clear English. "Welcome to Council Station Harmony. I am Ambassador Zixtel of the Aquatic Confederation, and I will serve as your guide during your introduction to galactic civilization. Commander Morrison stepped forward and offered what he hoped was an appropriate greeting. I am Commander Jake Morrison, representing the planet Earth and the human species. We are honored to meet you and grateful for this opportunity to establish peaceful relations. The ambassador's tentacles moved in patterns that the translation system interpreted as pleasure and approval. Your species shows appropriate respect and diplomatic courtesy. We have prepared suitable quarters for your delegation, and tomorrow we will begin the standard orientation process. As they followed Zixtel through the station's corridors, the humans marveled at the technology around them. Gravity varied smoothly between sections designed for different species. Holographic displays provided information in dozens of languages and symbol systems, and beings from various worlds moved about their business with casual efficiency. Dr. Wong observed everything with scientific fascination, taking notes on her tablet about the different species they encountered. Captain Burke noted security measures and defensive positions, habits that were hard to break even in peaceful situations. Katie Sullivan listened to the various languages and communication methods, her mind already working on the challenges of interspecies communication. What none of them realized was that their simple presence was already beginning to change the careful order that the Galactic Council had maintained for thousands of years. The orientation session began in Council Chamber 7, a medium-sized room designed for small diplomatic meetings. Ambassador Zixtel had arranged everything according to standard protocol: comfortable seating for the human delegation, translation, devices set to optimal frequencies, and a series of holographic displays ready to show the basics of galactic civilization. Chairman Velthara attended personally, which was somewhat unusual for a first contact orientation, but reflected the Council's interest in maintaining good relations with all new species. Several other senior Council members were also present, including Dr. Rendal and Mektar, along with representatives from the Navigators Guild and the Technology Assessment Board. Dr. Lisa Wang sat forward eagerly as Ambassador Zixtel began the presentation. The holographic displays showed the structure of galactic government, basic trade agreements, and the various levels of membership available to spacefaring species. Everything seemed straightforward and well organized, though she noticed that most of the technology being described was actually less advanced than what humanity had developed independently. Commander Morrison listened politely as the ambassador explained galactic law and the standard procedures for integrating new species into established society. The process was designed to take several generations, allowing new civilizations to gradually adapt to galactic standards without cultural shock or technological dependence. When the formal presentation ended, Chairman Velthara gestured toward the humans with one of her crystalline appendages. We would be most interested to learn about your species' achievements and capabilities. Such information helps us determine the most appropriate integration pathway for new civilizations. Dr. Wong activated her own portable holographic projector, a device that immediately caught the attention of the galactic observers. Most species required large, stationary equipment to generate three-dimensional displays, but the human device was no larger than a book and produced images with remarkable clarity and detail. Our homeworld Earth has a population of approximately 8 billion humans, she began, displaying images of major Earth cities and landscapes. We have developed fusion power generation, quantum computing systems, and medical nanotechnology that allows us to treat diseases at the cellular level. The Technology Assessment Board representative, a spider-like being named Archtel, made notes on his datapad. These capabilities seemed appropriate for a newly spacefaring species, though the miniaturization of their holographic technology was impressive. Captain Burke described human space travel capabilities with military precision. Our faster-than-light drives can achieve approximately 50 times the speed of light under optimal conditions. We have established permanent colonies on 12 worlds within 30 light-years of Earth, and our exploration vessels regularly survey new systems for potential settlement or resource extraction. This information also seemed routine to the council members. Most species achieved similar capabilities within a few centuries of developing space travel. What they did not expect was Katie Sullivan's casual mention of their navigation methods. Our navigation system automatically mapped 17 new hyperspace routes during our journey to this station, she said, reviewing her data tablet. The ship's computer identified 3 previously unknown dimensional layers that provided faster transit times than the established shipping lanes we were given. The chamber fell completely silent. Ambassador Zixtel's tentacles stopped moving. Entirely, which was his species' equivalent of shocked surprise. The Navigators Guild representative, a tall being with multiple eyes arranged around his elongated head, leaned forward with obvious interest. "You discovered new hyperspace routes during a single journey?" Chairman Velthara asked, her crystalline voice carrying a note of disbelief. Commander Morrison nodded as if this was perfectly normal. "Our navigation computers are designed to constantly search for optimal paths through dimensional space. We treat hyperspace like an ocean with currents and weather patterns rather than a highway with fixed roads." The Navigators Guild representative spoke for the first time, his multiple eyes focusing on the human commander. "Guildmaster Nextar here. My organization has spent thousands of years carefully mapping safe hyperspace routes. A single new pathway requires decades of testing and verification before it can be safely used." Katie Sullivan looked confused by this statement. "But hyperspace follows mathematical principles like any other dimension. Our computers use quantum probability, mapping, and predictive algorithms to calculate safe routes in real time. We've been doing this for over 20 years without any serious navigation failures." Dr. Rendall closed her eyes and focused her empathic abilities on the humans. What she sensed disturbed her greatly. They were telling the truth, and they genuinely did not understand why their navigation methods seemed impossible to the galactic community. The Technology Assessment Board representative asked for more details about human computer systems. Dr. Wang happily provided specifications for their quantum processors, artificial intelligence networks, and data storage capabilities. With each piece of information, the galactic observers became more puzzled. Humans had developed quantum computing independently, without access to galactic knowledge or technology. Their artificial intelligence systems were more sophisticated than those used by civilizations that had been spacefaring for millennia. Most disturbing of all, they seem to have achieved these advances through entirely different scientific approaches than those used by established galactic species. Mektar's metallic voice carried a note of confusion. "Your computational methods do not follow standard galactic principles. How did you develop quantum processing without access to crystalline matrices?" "We use silicon-based quantum dots suspended in supercooled environments," Dr. Wang explained. "The quantum states are maintained through electromagnetic field manipulation rather than crystal resonance. It's actually more stable and requires less energy than most alternatives." Chairman Velthara found herself in the unusual position of being educated by a species that was supposed to be seeking basic guidance about galactic civilization. The humans spoke about advanced concepts as if they were simple, everyday tools, yet they had developed these capabilities in complete isolation from galactic science. Captain Burke had been quietly observing the council members throughout the technical discussion. His military training made him sensitive to body language and emotional responses, even among alien species. Something about their reactions suggested that human capabilities were unexpected, possibly even concerning. "Is there something unusual about our technology?" he asked directly. "You all seem surprised by fairly basic human achievements." Ambassador Zixtel's tentacles moved in what the translation system interpreted as diplomatic uncertainty. "Your species has developed capabilities that most civilizations achieve only after centuries of galactic contact and technological exchange. This is not necessarily problematic, but it is highly unusual." Dr. Rendall opened her eyes and looked directly at the human delegation. "Your mental patterns are unlike anything in our xenopsychological databases. Most species develop along predictable evolutionary pathways, but humans seem to have retained characteristics that others lose during the transition to advanced civilization." "What kind of characteristics?" Dr. Wang asked with scientific curiosity. "Risk, tolerance, creative problem-solving, and what we might call constructive aggression," the empathic being replied. "Most advanced species become more cautious and methodical as they mature. Humans appear to have maintained the adaptability and innovation that are typically associated with primitive survival instincts." Commander Morrison considered this observation carefully. "We've always believed that maintaining flexibility and innovation was essential for long-term survival. Our history includes many examples of civilizations that became too rigid and eventually collapsed when faced with unexpected challenges." This statement caused another moment of uncomfortable silence in the chamber. Galactic civilization prided itself on stability and predictability. The idea that flexibility might be more valuable than established order challenged fundamental assumptions about advanced society. The formal orientation session continued for several more hours, but the dynamic had shifted completely. Instead of teaching the humans about galactic civilization, the council members found themselves trying to understand how a species could achieve such technological sophistication while retaining characteristics that galactic society had spent millennia evolving beyond. Captain Burke shared information about human military organization, describing combined arms tactics, strategic flexibility, and the concept of total war. The Security Council representative, a heavily armored being named Thalmor, listened with growing alarm as Burke casually described military capabilities that exceeded anything in the Galactic Defense Forces. Katie Sullivan demonstrated human communication technology, showing how their systems could adapt to new languages and communication methods within hours, rather than the years typically required for interspecies contact. Her enthusiastic description of communication as a creative art rather than a technical procedure challenged the Council's understanding of information exchange. The emergency alarms began sounding at 0347 station time, 3 weeks after the humans had arrived at Council Station Harmony. Dr. Lisa Wang woke immediately in her assigned quarters, her scientific training making her alert to any unusual sounds or situations. The alarm pattern was unfamiliar, but clearly indicated serious danger. In the corridor outside their quarters, Commander Morrison found Captain Burke already dressed and checking his personal communicator. Katie Sullivan emerged from her room with her translation device and data tablet, ready to help with communications if needed. The four humans had developed efficient emergency procedures during their years of space travel, and they moved with practiced coordination. The station's announcement system activated, and Ambassador Zixtel's voice echoed through the corridors in multiple languages. All station personnel, this is an emergency announcement. Primary Fusion Reactor 7 has experienced a cascade failure. Evacuation procedures are now in effect. All beings must report to designated emergency stations immediately. Emergency lighting activated throughout the station, bathing everything in a soft red glow that was visible to most species. Automated systems began sealing non-essential sections and routing power to critical life support functions. The evacuation procedures that the Galactic Council had refined over thousands of years swung into smooth operation. Commander Morrison led his team toward the nearest emergency station, following the clearly marked evacuation routes. Along the way, they passed beings from dozens of different species moving in orderly groups toward escape pod bays and emergency shelters. The evacuation was proceeding with impressive efficiency and calm. At Emergency Station 12, they found Ambassador Zixtel coordinating with other senior council members. His mobile water tank had been equipped with emergency power supplies and communication equipment, allowing him to maintain contact with the station's command center. "How serious is the situation?" Dr. Wang asked, her scientific curiosity overriding concerns for her own safety. "Cascade failure in a fusion reactor is extremely dangerous," the ambassador replied. "The containment fields are degrading, and we estimate approximately 6 hours before catastrophic failure. However, our evacuation procedures can clear the station in 4 hours, so there should be adequate safety margin." Captain Burke studied the flow of evacuees moving through the corridors. "How many beings are currently on the station?" "Approximately 10,400 individuals from 137 different species," Zixtel answered. "Emergency pods and evacuation ships can handle this number easily within the time limit." Dr. Wang activated her portable computer and began accessing the station's technical databases through her data tablet. The translation software allowed her to read engineering specifications and reactor schematics, though much of the information was restricted to authorized personnel only. Chairman Velthara arrived at the emergency station, her crystalline form, moving quickly despite her advanced age. "All evacuation sectors are reporting normal progress. We should have complete station evacuation within 3 hours and 50 minutes. "What about attempts to repair the reactor?" Dr. Wang asked, studying the technical data she had been able to access. Mektar responded from his position near the emergency communications console. "Repair is not possible. Cascade failures cannot be stopped once they reach critical threshold. The energy release patterns become self-sustaining and continue until fuel exhaustion or catastrophic containment breach." Dr. Wang frowned at this explanation, her scientific mind working through the technical details. "But the energy patterns should be predictable based on quantum mechanical principles. If you could redirect the cascade through controlled channels, you might be able to vent the excess energy safely." The Silicon Collective representative's metallic features expressed what might have been surprise. "Such intervention has never been attempted. The risk of accelerating the failure process would be unacceptable." Katie Sullivan had been monitoring station communications and tracking the evacuation progress. "Dr. Wang, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures in the reactor compartment. The failure pattern doesn't match standard fusion cascade models." Commander Morrison looked at his science officer with concern. "Lisa, what are you thinking?" Reactor design is different from human fusion systems, but the basic principles should be the same, she replied, her fingers moving rapidly across her data tablet. I'm seeing 17 different intervention points where controlled energy redirection might stabilize the cascade. Captain Burke recognized the look in her eyes. He had seen it before when she was working on seemingly impossible problems during their exploration missions. You have an idea. More than an idea, Dr. Wong said, standing up with sudden determination. I think I can fix this. Ambassador Zixtel's tentacles stopped moving entirely. Dr. Wong, I appreciate your desire to help, but our best engineers have already determined that repair is impossible. The evacuation is proceeding smoothly, and there is no need to risk lives with untested procedures. But 10,000 beings losing their homes and the destruction of this entire station isn't acceptable when there might be an alternative, she replied firmly. At minimum, I'd like permission to examine the reactor situation directly. Chairman Velthara found herself in an unprecedented situation. Galactic protocols were clear. During emergencies, proven procedures took priority over experimental solutions. The evacuation was working exactly as designed, and there was no logical reason to deviate from established safety measures. However, the humans had already demonstrated capabilities that challenged galactic assumptions about technology and problem-solving. Dr. Wang's confidence was not the false bravado of an amateur, but the quiet certainty of a scientist who understood the principles involved. The risk would be enormous, Velthara said slowly. If your intervention accelerated the cascade failure, we could lose evacuation time that we cannot afford. Commander Morrison stepped forward. Chairman, my team has experience working in dangerous situations. If Dr. Wong believes there's a viable solution, I'd like permission for us to investigate while the evacuation continues normally. Dr. Rendall had been sensing the emotions of everyone present throughout the discussion. Their confidence is genuine, she reported. They believe they can succeed, and their previous actions suggest they do not take unnecessary risks. Mektar accessed his internal databases and reviewed human technical achievements. Their species has demonstrated unconventional but effective approaches to technological problems. Perhaps we should allow them to examine the situation. 20 minutes later, Dr. Wang stood in the reactor compartment wearing an emergency environmental suit and carrying a collection of human scientific instruments. The massive fusion reactor towered above her, its containment fields flickering with dangerous energy patterns that painted the walls in shifting colors. Captain Burke and Katie Sullivan worked with the skeleton crew of station engineers who had remained behind to monitor critical systems. Commander Morrison coordinated with the Emergency Command Center, providing regular updates on their progress while ensuring that evacuation procedures continued without interruption. Dr. Wang's analysis confirmed her initial assessment. The cascade failure was following predictable patterns, but the galactic approach to fusion containment was fundamentally different from human methods. Where galactic engineers focused on maintaining stable containment fields, humans had developed techniques for managing energy flow dynamically. Katie, I need you to interface with the station's computer and identify all auxiliary power routing systems, she called out over the communications channel. Captain Burke, can you help me access the emergency venting controls for the docking bay thrusters? Her plan was audacious by galactic standards. Instead of trying to contain the cascade failure, she proposed using controlled micro-explosions to redirect the energy buildup into the station's emergency power grid. The excess energy could then be channeled through the docking bay thrusters and vented safely into space. The engineering team that remained to assist her included representatives from 3 different species, all of whom had volunteered to stay despite the danger. They worked with desperate efficiency, modifying control systems and rerouting power connections according to Dr. Wang's instructions. With 2 hours remaining before predicted catastrophic failure, she activated the energy redirection sequence. The reactor's violent energy patterns began flowing through new pathways, lighting up auxiliary systems throughout the station. Emergency power levels jumped to maximum capacity as the cascade energy was captured and controlled. The docking bay. Thrusters designed for minor station positioning adjustments suddenly roared to life with the power of a small star. Brilliant streams of energy shot out into space as the deadly cascade failure was transformed into controlled propulsion. In the Emergency Command Center, Chairman Velthara watched in amazement as her station's power systems stabilized and the reactor cascade was brought under control. The impossible had become routine, accomplished by a species that had been on the station for less than a month. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 12 hours after the reactor crisis had been resolved. Chairman Velthara looked out at the assembled representatives, many of whom appeared confused and unsettled by recent events. For the first time in her long memory, the Council faced a situation that their established procedures could not adequately address. Dr. Rendall presented her preliminary psychological analysis of humanity to the gathered council members. Her empathic abilities had given her unique insights into human thinking patterns during the crisis, and her findings were deeply disturbing to the galactic community. Humans exhibit what I can only describe as constructive instability, she began, her soft voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. They are simultaneously capable of incredible cooperation and devastating individual action. They can work together with perfect coordination, yet each individual is prepared to take independent action when circumstances require it. Ambassador Zixtel's tentacles moved in patterns that indicated confusion. All advanced species learn to balance individual initiative with collective coordination. This is a basic requirement for spacefaring civilization. But humans have achieved this balance while retaining what other species abandoned during their development, Dr. Rendall replied. They have kept the adaptability and innovation that most civilizations sacrifice in exchange for stability and predictability. Mektar accessed his databases and displayed statistical information about galactic technological development. According to our records, advanced species typically require between 2,000 and 5,000 years to develop the scientific principles that humans achieved independently within their last century. This rate of advancement is unprecedented. The implications of this information created uncomfortable silence in the chamber. Galactic civilization prided itself on steady, measured progress that avoided the chaos and conflicts that characterized primitive societies. The idea that rapid advancement might be superior to gradual development challenged everything they believed about advanced civilization. Chairman Velthara activated holographic displays showing the reactor crisis from multiple perspectives. Dr. Wang's solution to our emergency demonstrates problem-solving capabilities that our best engineers considered impossible. She succeeded not because human technology is superior, but because human thinking approaches problems from directions we had never considered. The Navigators Guild representative, Nextar, spoke up from his specialized seating area. During their arrival, humans demonstrated navigation abilities that my organization has spent millennia developing. They treat hyperspace as a dynamic environment rather than a fixed infrastructure, allowing them to discover new routes that we cannot even detect. Captain Burke had been invited to address the Council about human military capabilities, and his presentation left the Security Council deeply concerned. He described combined arms tactics, strategic flexibility, and the human approach to warfare with the casual efficiency of someone discussing routine procedures. Most galactic conflicts are resolved through economic pressure, diplomatic negotiation, or limited territorial disputes, Security Chief Thalmor observed. Human military doctrine appears designed for conflicts involving total commitment of resources and complete destruction of enemy capabilities. We call it total war, Burke replied matter-of-factly. When diplomacy fails and conflict becomes necessary, we believe in achieving decisive victory as quickly as possible to minimize overall casualties and suffering. This concept horrified most council members. Galactic conflicts were typically ritualized affairs with minimal casualties, often resolved through formal combat between small numbers of representatives. The idea of entire civilizations committing all their resources to warfare was almost incomprehensible to species that had evolved beyond such primitive behavior. Dr. Rendall continued her analysis with growing concern. Humans demonstrate emotional patterns that suggest they actually thrive in chaotic and dangerous situations. Most advanced species develop stress responses that encourage caution and conflict avoidance, but humans seem to become more creative and effective when faced with seemingly impossible challenges. Katie Sullivan had been asked to demonstrate human communication capabilities, and her presentation revealed abilities that challenged the Council's understanding of information exchange. She showed how human systems could adapt to new languages and communication methods within hours, treating communication as a creative process rather than a technical procedure. Our translation systems require decades of study to safely interface with new species, the Communications Board representative noted. Human methods seem to achieve similar results through intuition and pattern recognition rather than systematic analysis. We approach language as a living system that changes and adapts constantly, Katie explained. Every conversation is an opportunity to learn and improve communication. We don't just translate words, we try to understand the thinking, patterns behind the language. Commander Morrison addressed the Council about human exploration philosophy, describing their approach to unknown situations with confidence that alarmed many representatives. Where galactic exploration followed careful protocols designed to minimize risk, humans seem to view unknown dangers as opportunities for discovery and growth. We have procedures and safety measures, he explained, but we also understand that real exploration requires accepting calculated risks. You cannot discover new worlds and new possibilities if you only travel where others have already proven it is safe to go. The Technology Assessment Board reviewed human scientific achievements and reached conclusions that shook the foundations of galactic academic understanding. Humans had developed advanced quantum computing, medical nanotechnology, and fusion power through entirely different scientific approaches than those used by established galactic civilization. Their research methods do not follow standard galactic protocols, Archtel reported. Instead of building incrementally on established knowledge, they seem to question fundamental assumptions and develop completely new theoretical frameworks. This approach is extremely dangerous but has produced remarkable results. Chairman Velthara found herself confronting the possibility that galactic civilization had become stagnant without realizing it. For thousands of years, they had focused on stability, predictability, and the gradual refinement of established knowledge. The idea that rapid innovation and calculated risk-taking might be superior approaches challenged everything the Council represented. Ambassador Kethavar presented classified reports from the Outer Rim territories, where human merchant vessels had begun operating independently. The information he shared was even more disturbing than the formal presentations. Human traders are successfully operating in regions that we consider too dangerous for civilized commerce, he reported. They have established trade relationships with species that our diplomatic corps has been unable to contact for centuries. More significantly, they are systematically eliminating pirate operations that have plagued those systems for generations. The Outer Rim piracy problem had been a persistent challenge for galactic security forces. Traditional law enforcement methods were ineffective against pirates who used hit-and-run tactics and disappeared into unexplored space. Human merchants, however, seemed to be solving the problem through methods that the Security Council found deeply troubling. Captain Burke's tactical innovations were being shared with system defense forces throughout the galaxy, and the results were revolutionary. His integration of human military doctrine with alien technologies had created defensive capabilities that no single species could have achieved independently. Dr. Wang's medical techniques were saving lives that traditional galactic medicine had written off as untreatable. Her approach to treating trauma and adapting to hostile environments was being studied by medical facilities across dozens of star systems. Katie Sullivan's communication networks were transforming information exchange throughout the galaxy. Her concepts of redundancy and adaptive networking made the previous galactic communication system look primitive and inefficient. Commander Morrison's navigation methods were opening up new trade routes that promised to reshape the galactic economy. Entire sectors that had been isolated due to navigation difficulties were suddenly accessible through human hyperspace techniques. The Council faced an unprecedented situation. Humanity had not simply joined galactic civilization, they were fundamentally altering it. The traditional hierarchy based on technological advancement and temporal stability was proving inadequate for a species that excelled through innovation, adaptability, and calculated risk-taking. Dr. Rendall presented her final assessment with obvious reluctance. Humans represent something we have never encountered before, a species that has achieved technological sophistication without sacrificing the creative chaos that drives innovation. They are simultaneously primitive and advanced, stable and dynamic, cooperative and individualistic. Chairman Velthara looked around the chamber at representatives who had spent thousands of years maintaining carefully ordered galactic society. 6 months after humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, Chairman Velthara stood before the completely reconfigured Grand Council chamber. The ancient circular design had been replaced with a more dynamic arrangement that reflected the fundamental changes sweeping through galactic society. Where once rigid hierarchy had determined seating arrangements, the new configuration encouraged interaction and collaborative problem-solving. Commander Morrison now held the unprecedented position of Director of Strategic Innovation, leading a newly created division that tackled challenges the Council had previously considered impossible to solve. His office overlooked the station's main docking bay, where human and alien vessels worked together using hybrid technologies that combined the best of both approaches. The morning briefing included representatives from 47 different species, all eager to contribute to projects that would have been unthinkable under the old galactic order. The Rapid Response Corps that Captain Burke had organized was preparing for deployment to the Andorian sector, where a combination of human tactical doctrine and crystalline empire defensive technology promised to end a piracy problem that had persisted for over 2 centuries. Dr. Wong's interspecies medical exchange had revolutionized healthcare throughout the galaxy. Her techniques for treating trauma and environmental adaptation were being combined with advanced alien medical knowledge to create treatment capabilities that far exceeded what any single species could achieve. The emergency medical protocols she had developed were now standard throughout galactic space, and her research into cross-species organ synthesis had saved thousands of lives. Katie Sullivan had transformed galactic communications from a slow, formal process into a dynamic network that connected the far reaches of the galaxy in real time. Her adaptive communication protocols allowed instant translation between species that had never been able to communicate directly before. The redundant network architecture she had designed made the entire galactic communication system more reliable and efficient than ever before. The changes extended far beyond individual achievements. The traditional galactic approach to technological development had been completely reevaluated. Instead of the slow, careful progress that had characterized galactic advancement for millennia, research facilities throughout the galaxy were adopting human methods that emphasized rapid prototyping, creative problem-solving, and calculated risk-taking. The results were extraordinary. Energy barriers that had prevented galactic expansion beyond the rim worlds were being overcome through human-designed dimensional manipulation techniques. Quantum mathematics that had stymied galactic scientists for centuries were being solved using human computational approaches. Even the persistent problems of faster-than-light communication were yielding to hybrid technologies that combined human innovation with alien scientific knowledge. Ambassador Zix Tel had become one of humanity's strongest advocates within the galactic diplomatic community. His species' natural empathy allowed him to understand human emotional patterns in ways that other aliens found difficult, and he served as an interpreter between human directness and galactic diplomatic tradition. The humans have taught us that advanced civilization does not require abandoning the characteristics that make a species innovative and adaptable, he reported to the Cultural Development Board. They have shown us that it is possible to maintain both stability and dynamic growth simultaneously. The Navigators Guild had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of any galactic organization. Guildmaster Nextar had initially resisted human navigation methods, but the dramatic improvements in efficiency and safety had convinced even the most traditional navigators to adopt hybrid approaches. Human navigation techniques had opened up over 300 new hyperspace routes in just 6 months, connecting previously isolated systems and creating opportunities for trade and cultural exchange that were reshaping the entire galactic economy. The combination of human intuitive navigation with traditional galactic safety protocols had made space travel faster, cheaper, and more reliable than ever before. Dr. Rendall's psychological research had led to fundamental changes in galactic education and social development. Her studies of human mental patterns had revealed that many of the characteristics galactic society had evolved beyond were actually essential for long-term growth and adaptation. We spent thousands of years teaching our children to be cautious and methodical, she explained to the Education Council. Humans have shown us that we must also teach them to be creative and willing to take calculated risks. The balance between these approaches is what creates true advancement. The Security Council had been completely restructured around principles that Captain Burke had introduced. Instead of the reactive, defensive approach that had characterized galactic security for millennia, the new protocols emphasized rapid response, flexible tactics, and the integration of multiple species capabilities into combined operational units. The Outer Rim Pacification Campaign had been the first major test of these new methods. Human tactical doctrine, combined with crystalline empire defensive technology and aquatic confederation intelligence gathering, had eliminated pirate operations that had plagued dozens of star systems for generations. The success was so complete that similar operations were being planned for other problem regions throughout the galaxy. Mektar had worked closely with human engineers to develop new manufacturing techniques that combined the precision of silicon collective technology with human adaptive design principles. The results were production systems that could quickly adapt to changing requirements while maintaining the quality standards that galactic civilization demanded. The Technology Assessment Board had abandoned its traditional approach of slow, methodical evaluation in favor of rapid prototyping and field testing that allowed promising innovations to be deployed quickly while maintaining appropriate safety measures. This change had accelerated technological development throughout the galaxy at a pace that would have been impossible under the old system. Chairman Velthara prepared to announce the most significant change in galactic governance in over 2 millennia. The Council had voted unanimously to offer humanity not just full membership in galactic civilization, but a permanent seat on the Executive Council with authority over the new Department of Strategic Innovation. For thousands of years, she began her address to the assembled representatives. We believed that advanced civilization required the abandonment of characteristics we associated with primitive survival instincts. We thought that true wisdom meant choosing stability over change, caution over innovation, and established procedures over creative problem-solving. The chamber was completely silent as she continued. Humanity has shown us that these beliefs were not wisdom, but limitations we had imposed upon ourselves. They have demonstrated that it is possible to be both advanced and innovative, both stable and dynamic, both cooperative and individually capable. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the remarkable changes that had occurred throughout galactic civilization in just 6 months. Trade routes that had been stagnant for centuries were bustling with activity. Scientific research that had been progressing slowly for millennia was achieving breakthrough after breakthrough. Social problems that had been accepted as inevitable were being solved through approaches that combined human innovation with galactic wisdom. Commander Morrison stood to address the Council for the first time as an official member rather than a diplomatic visitor. When we first arrived at this station, we expected to learn about galactic civilization and find our place within established society. What we discovered instead was an opportunity for all of us to grow together. He gestured toward the diverse assembly of beings who had learned to see the galaxy through human eyes while teaching humans to appreciate the wisdom that galactic civilization had accumulated over thousands of years. Humans didn't come here to change your civilization. We came here to learn from it. But in the process of learning from each other, we've all discovered that there were possibilities none of us had imagined. Dr. Wong spoke about the medical advances that had resulted from combining human emergency medicine with galactic biological knowledge. We've learned that healing requires both the careful precision that galactic medicine has perfected and the rapid adaptation that human medicine developed out of necessity. Together, we can save lives that neither approach could save alone. Katie Sullivan described the communication networks that now connected species that had never been able to work together effectively before. Communication isn't just about translating words from one language to another. It's about finding ways for different kinds of minds to share ideas and build something greater than what any of us could create individually, Captain Burke reported, on the security improvements that had made the galaxy safer for all species. Defense isn't just about having the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about being able to adapt quickly to new threats and work together to protect what all of us value. The transformation extended beyond practical improvements to fundamental changes in how galactic society understood itself and its possibilities.